black fathers are absent and uninvolved. That's got to be such a normative view that any father shows up doing something normal like braiding a child's hair or being present at a child's function. Even in schools, they begin to act as if this father is doing something exceptional. Well, that's driven by the myth that he's absent or black men don't really care about their children. We sometimes see this in media, television shows, many stories and playwrights that we hear about fathers, and they're disconnected or they're uninvolved. Now, one of my favorite movies was Fences. And we began to see that type of behavior play out. And sometimes as a myth, it becomes believable that this is the normal behavior of fathers involved with their children. Hi, I'm Dr. Gary O. White, and welcome to another edition of the Dr. G.O. White Show, where we focus on strengthening fatherhood and building strong families. Now, that's an okay and a great idea, but oftentimes we're met with the challenge of the reality or the truth, what we understand about Black fathers, in competition to what we see in the media. So much so that there's so many myths about Black fathers that many of us have adopted in social media. We've adopted many of these negative images, and even in some of the families, we've adopted some of these negative myths about Black fathers. And so let's look at some of these myths about Black fathers, and you'll see what I mean. Number one, Black fathers are absent and uninvolved. That's got to be such a normative view that any father shows up doing something normal like braiding a child's hair or being present at a child's function. Even in schools, they begin to act as if this father is doing something exceptional. Well, that's driven by the myth that he's absent or black men don't really care about their children. We sometimes see this in media, television shows, many stories and playwrights that we hear about fathers, and they're disconnected or they're uninvolved. Now, one of my favorite movies was Fences. And we began to see that type of behavior play out. And sometimes as a myth, it becomes believable that this is the normal behavior of fathers involved with their children. Another myth is that black men don't know how to be nurturing or emotionally present with their children. Now, it's a reality that society really trains men in general to be providers and not so much nurturers. And so we buy into the myth that the only thing that fathers do is just pay their child support and they're disconnected or they're uninvolved. Or the more popular term that had come about is that they're deadbeat dads. These type of myths, once perpetuated, then we buy into them. The men buy into them and the community buy into them. So these myths that we're seeing can be really, really detrimental. Also, Black fatherhood, right? The existence of fathers as a community, then we began to look at something like that, is that there are not a lot of fatherhood programs or not a lot of initiatives for men to focus on being better fathers. So we buy into a lot of these myths and we reach the point where we accept them. Well, there's a challenge. We have to combat these negative images. We have to combat them and challenge them by ensuring that people understand the reality around Black fathers and what we do and our level of involvement as something not exceptional, but is normal. Many Black fathers will run the risk of internalizing these beliefs. Now, I'll tell you, I remember when my first child was born in 1994. And once my daughter was there and they began to do all the testing on her and they took her little foot and put her little foot on the birth certificate form, and they asked my wife to write her name on the form. And then I said, I want to put my name on it. I remember the doctor saying, oh, Mr. White, that's not necessary. And my argument that it was necessary. And the doctor was like, well, no, she's the mother and she needs her name on it. And I said, I'm the father. I need my name on it. This is a historical document. And so when she sees this document 31 years later, I want to make sure that she sees my name on it as well as her mother's name on it. So that's a challenge of trying to compete or go against these negative views toward fathers of being disconnected. And so it becomes an institutional matter. Even in school systems, sometimes the idea of a father being present or being involved when the media or excuse me, when the schools buy into it, then they have no expectations of a father being involved. And so, again, this takes me back to when my children were in elementary school and we wanted to have a father daughter dance. We received a great deal of resistance from teachers and from some of the parents because they said, well, there are a lot of children that don't have fathers. And if you do this, Mr. White, and you men get together and you all do this, then there are going to be many children that feel left out. And so I have to challenge that as an idea that they don't have a father. And so I asked for clarity. Well, what do you mean they don't have a father? Is he deceased? No. Is he in prison? Well, some of them, but most of them, no. And so the question is that if he's not involved, well, what do we need to do to get him involved? So these kind of challenges that we run into, and we see them showing up in many settings. So it presents a challenge for us to strong arm the narrative and the behavior that is a byproduct of that narrative. Children buy into the myth as well. And so we have to challenge even within our children, letting them know that our presence is not an exceptional thing. Our presence is what we are expected to do. There are no awards or no accolades that fathers need in this regard, but our challenge is that when we start seeing certain images in the media, certain images on television, and it becomes like a norm, then it becomes problematic. One of my favorite shows of all time was The Cosby Show. Now, I know a lot of people have issues with Bill Cosby, but one thing you cannot challenge is that as a father, it was for the first time in television where a Black family demonstrated health and strength and functionality as a family. And so it became a positive image that we began to see. And there were other shows that we see this, Meet the Pains. We see it again as a father who is being present, My Wife and Kids. These images here we began to see as positive. The media at one point understood the responsibility of the father. Even in shows like Good Times, the responsibility when you listen to the words of the songs and when you look at the presence of James Evans as a strong father, it demonstrated even then, even in the projects in Cabrini Green, you still had a father who was fully engaged and fully involved. So this was a period of time when the media accepted and understood the responsibility of the presence of a father in that time. Also, one of my favorites from that period of time was Good Times. So, excuse me, we went from Good Times to the Jeffersons. Even in the Jeffersons, as they moved up to the east side, you saw a father who was present, who was involved, who modeled protection of the family. So again, we see these senses of responsibility playing out. These were images that we bought, that we accepted. And for a lot of young men, we even tried to model them. Even in the sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, even though his father was not present, Uncle Phil, as a model, as a role model, demonstrated the type of masculinity, the type of maturity, the type of authority that the young kids in the family accepted. These are types of responsibilities, and these are type of images that we have to take responsibility and promote. And we have to challenge negative images that begin to show up. Now, I like Boys in the Hood. I like Furious, played by Lawrence Fishburne, even in the projects, providing and talking with his son around the responsibility, and even made a reference to his son. Look at some of the other young men who don't have fathers. These types of images become critical. Another one is Baby Boy. You saw in Baby Boy, mama's dating, but that authority and that peace becomes critical in how we understand and we began to look at some of the important images of fathers. These pieces are real. These are realities. These are not narratives, but these are things that we have to pay attention to and focus on, because what you begin to believe will dictate what you see. So the challenges, the myths are before us. Number one, Black fathers actually are more involved in their children and the caretaking of their children than many of their white counterparts. Black fathers are more likely than white and Hispanic fathers to be involved in the daily caregiving of their children. Now, these are some facts and stats that you really don't hear about, and you might find yourself struggling to even accept. The strong emotional and physical presence that fathers have, even when not living with the children, is something that is a common norm. When the fathers have the opportunity to be with the children, then their amount of access, the amount of responsibility, and the amount of engagement that the fathers are able to have with their children is critical. And this is what's important. It does not have that much to do with the financial standing of the father. If the father is able to be with the child, if he's able to have the level of consistency and impact that he intends to have by his presence, and then we began to see, in terms of challenging the narratives, fathers being present and fathers having that value that they want to put forward within a context of their children. And so here's what I want us to do as fathers. I need us to take control of the narrative. We see the images when people challenge us or when someone treats them as exceptional. I need you to correct them on the spot. Show up consistently and loudly, brothers. Show up consistently and loudly in your children's lives. I need you to be the loudest parent and in the volleyball competition. I need you to be the sideline coach in the sports activities. Be present, so much so that the school and the churches and the other systems began to anticipate your presence. You actually become a model to other fathers, right? Tell your story. This is also critical, fathers. I need you to tell your story. I need you to create and share and spread the narrative. I got mine. These are mine. Now, one of the things, even with raising my own children, and my last name is White, so y'all give me the jokes, I got it. But here's what's understandable. When I would drop my children off at school, in elementary school, I would tell them, remember you were white. Remember everything that you do, that you are white. If anyone has any challenges or issues, let them know that you are white. So if daddy needs to come up on the scene, not from a hostile standpoint, but I would see the difference in the behavior of many children when the father is there and he is present. Also, what we have to do to manage and control the narrative, fathers, we've got to hold other fathers accountable. You've got to put them in check. If they're doing something, if they're not present, yes. If you are participating in a school activity and you know that there's a child whose father's not being present, I'm telling you to be comfortable with asking the mother or the coaches, where's the father to this child? I want to get him involved. You know, there's one thing worse than having no expectations of a Black father, and that's having none. Let me say that again. There's one thing worse than having low expectations of a Black father, and that's having none. And so the narrative that we're strong arming, the narrative that we are taking control of now is in place so that we can document our wins, that we can begin to share our story. We don't need to wait to be perfect. We don't need to wait to get the accolades. We need to celebrate one another. We need to form organizations and be present with one another so that we can highlight our differences, so that we can highlight our accomplishments. When we do this, we'll see that this is not a matter of trying to fix fathers or trying to fix the images of fathers. We need to show up to show the truth and challenge the myths. This is what's critical in challenging the social media images of fathers and challenging the daily beliefs that may exist at schools and in the school systems regarding fathers, by being present, by being involved, by being consistent, and by being true to who you are as a father. I'm Dr. Gary O. White, and this has been my fatherhood moment. Thank you.